Hi, this is Marie with part 3 of Fortnite Festival. Charting. I, since we have all of the things that we need down, we have tempo mapped it, we have made sure that our events and stuff are perfectly fine, we've made sure that we have our audio going, and it's all working. Count-ins are a little special, you could just choose a noise for whatever, and cut it from whatever, and put it in there, whatever. Which, I mean, you don't really need a count-in, it's just suggested, it makes you cool and fancy, but you don't need it, and it's a bit more complicated. But you may be asking, well, what do I do now? So if you know, Party Packer, the lead, just the only distributor of the songs, will force you to make songs on expert. You can chart for lower difficulties, but it has to be expert. Um, I'll help you out with expert. The only thing is, you're gonna want it to be pretty accurate to the song. So what I would do is like start with a. Okay, I have to zoom in actually before I continue. Start with your note, right? Let's go closer. So here, so it's like ooh, ooh, normal stuff. So this is how the song goes. Ooh wee ooh ooh. So you'll be like, oh yeah, that looks right. That looks fine. But you're gonna know, like, the thing about festival is there's a certain way that you're supposed to chart these notes. First of all, any notes, because there's a divide between the lower two notes and the upper two notes. The lower two being these two, you'll see in the preview right here, and the upper notes, those three right there. You're not allowed to make chords like this. No, you're allowed to make chords like that. You're not allowed to like make chords like that, 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 that. No, like that, 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 that. I should have also included this. That's also illegal. You're not allowed to do any of these things right here. That's just the first thing. Because it's optimized for controller. Controller has the left two buttons and then the right three buttons to make it more easier. Same with keyboard, D, F, J, K, L. Those are the default. That's the standard. You're supposed to conform to these not being chords. Fuck you. And these upper ones not being chords. What is legal is these. Which doesn't seem like that much, I think. There might be a bit more. I'm probably not remembering correctly, but these are completely legal. You're also going to think about, and don't worry about thinking about like, oh yeah, I have to memorize what's legal and what's not. It's just, you can't have a chord with the lower two, and you can't have a chord with the upper two, and also three note chords aren't allowed. Now, when it comes to notes that are lift-offs, like, I call them pull-offs, but what are lift-offs? You have to make sure that you have the note charted and the lift-off modifier. It's kind of like how Rock Band does pro drums. If you want to mark it as a tom, you have to mark it up here and say, ah, yeah, this is supposed to be a different type of note, not the one you're going to read as default. Now you're going to see we have a liftoff. Not exactly what we want, though. We want it to follow a note. And there you go. This is the basic setup for liftoff. If you set it up incorrectly, the editor will try to tell you, hey, that's illegal. Don't try to do that. If you use the official version, it'll tell you like chords like this are illegal or like that are illegal. It'll tell you outright, or like this is illegal. It'll tell you outright that is illegal. Do not do that. And then don't forget, star of the show, not really star of the show, sustains. They're long notes. They say, hey, you have to hold this. It's not like a pull off, but you have to hold it down for that period, and it gives you points as you hold it down. And the longer you hold it, the more points you get. If you release early, you won't get all the points. You can resize it as long as it's longer than 1/16, which is defined down here. Straight. 1/16, as long as it's longer than that. It'll be counted as a sustain, I believe. But there are sustains that are too short. Try to keep them over a beat. This long is perfectly fine. This long, reconsider. Definitely reconsider, because that probably isn't supposed to be a sustain. If you need to do something that's like this short, just do this. Have your pull off here, no, your regular note here, and then your pull off up here, if it needs to be this long. That's all I'm going to say. Also, the other thing with sustains is you can't do cool things like this. You can't. You're not allowed to. The editor might tell you, I'm not exactly sure because I haven't used the new version, but the editor might tell you that this is illegal and that you cannot do it. But Fortnite Festival might just be like, hey, I'll show it perfectly fine. It is an illusion. It is a trick. You will not be able to hit it. It will mess up the player's combo. None of this is hittable because this will trip up the player's combo. Just PSA. And also for here, keep it moved back because technically this is one whole note on its own. Remember that? This is the head of the note. And then the rest of this is just what comes after. So this is more appropriate, even if it seems weirder. This is not appropriate. This is more appropriate. If you're trying to keep it snapped off like that. Those are practically the basics. Now, let's say you're charting a song and it's just like, hey, what about those orange notes? And let me continue charting out this phrase, and those orange notes are important to tell you. Now, you already know what an orange note is. It's the double points. It's the energy phrase. If I can get this phrase... I'm spending too much effort onto this. Whatever. But the thing is, you want to place your notes the way you want them to be played. As long as they go with the song. Usually this will come like way after. And then you're going to scroll up a little. At the very top, you're going to see a track named Golden Note, right? This is where you're going to place your energy phrases. It's recommended to keep them like close to a measure long. And keep them at least, well, not at least, close to, approximately 10 measures apart, which this is a measure. 3 to 4, that's a measure. So, and the preview will color the notes orange. And you'll know, hey, that is a energy phrase. Keep them at least, or somewhat around 10 measures apart, although there are, like, points where you may need to put more notes because more golden phrases, because on expert you're able to have gold stars if you do well enough and get all of these golden notes and you hit them perfectly and you get enough overdrive and you use it properly, you will get gold stars. Thing is, you can't get gold stars without properly placed energy phrases. If you don't place the energy phrases properly, you can't get gold stars. And it's important to get these phrases. The people on Party Pack who will be distributing your chart and approving your chart when you eventually get to upload it, which is in the next part, will look out for this and say, this is bad, this is not. You need, like, they will test this. They will look to see if this works. Once you have that all laid out, once you have the song finished, which in the different parts, which actually I have to explain something. The lower on here it is, the lower the note. It's all completely relative. There is no way to do charting wrong. I mean, there is a way to do charting wrong, but the idea is there's no way to interpret the pitch wrong as long as you're not interpreting the pitch the opposite way. And don't get too stringent on the notes being the right way, because there will be parts where you have to compromise because you only have 5 notes that are very limited when it comes to chords, and you're just gonna say screw it. I'm just gonna make it seem a little weird, but as long as it flows, as long as it makes sense why you did that, then it'll work. Be open to criticism, especially while you're learning, because this is a learning experience. We're all learning here. Um, but that's just the basics of guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. Although I will say, on vocals, do not do chords. Do not. No chords whatsoever. If you do chords, just don't. The whole thing about chords on vocals is when you have a vocalist, you only have one person singing. If you were to chart my voice right now, you would only have single notes. This is why vocals has a max multiplier of 6, because they're all single notes. In rare cases will you have chords, but that's only when you have a backup singer singing along the same exact notes the same exact time. Like if you were doing Go with the Flow, which for no reason should you because it's already released, you'd probably put in chords because the I can go with the flow parts are backup singer and lead singer. If you even wanted to, debatably. I still would say no to that because they're very hard to tell apart unless you've played the rock band chart on vocals, the microphone instrument, the actual microphone. But yeah, same with bass. Typically on bass you have single notes. If you have stems, it's really easy to pick apart what are chords on the bass, but typically you never hear chords on the bass. Drums is where it gets interesting. You can tell that I have done a little bit of drum charting. And I guess you could kind of look to me for drum charting if you ever see me in the festival Discord, but let me get the zoom right. There you go. The whole thing with drum charting is it's more accurate to the instrument. It's less opinionated on what the notes are than anything else. But there are cases where you're going to have to sacrifice notes. You aren't going to get the notes perfectly lined up to the beat lines, and that's a-okay. I've had to make some sacrifices here to get these notes lined up with the notes, and I've even had to go as far as to change it from straight to triplet for this song to even function right on drums. And you'll see it has a few quirks, I guess, if you want to call them quirks. But they're all as accurate as I can get it to the song. Again, same restrictions apply, but usually the first lane, if I could pull up the preview, the first lane, this one right here, that is kick. It's your the red second lane, that's your snare, typically. Ta, ta. Yellow, that's typically like your hi-hat. There's some exceptions to red and yellow, but let me get there. Blue, I would say, is your hi-hats. That's your, not your hi-hats, but it's like the ride. It's the ting, 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 ting. It's also when the hi-hat opens, which is more complicated. It's when the hi-hat goes psst, psst. But that's more complicated, and just stick to hi-hats being yellow because it complicates the charting process. And then orange, the last lane, this one right here, that's like the crash, the or the tom, like the boom, 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 boom. Not to be confused with the kick, which is the. That made it come through weirdly because I have noise suppression on. They're very distinct and it's interesting. But because you only have 5 notes here, there's so many parts of a drum kit. Just try to keep it like as if you were looking at a drum kit left to right. If you need help with looking at a drum kit, I can pull up a picture right here. Okay, they're all backwards. Like this image. you can see if you were to sit here, it's snare, well, kick on the far left, snare, hi-hat or tom, these two, ride, that's not a ride, that's a crash. Ride, ride, that's a crash too, never mind, I'm kind of dumb. Tom or ride, and then lower drum or crash or crash or crash or crash. That's generally the layout. I might have overcomplicated it by showing that. Ignore it if you don't understand it. If you understand it, then good. You understand a drum kit, which is an achievement. I applaud you. Um, but yeah, you can hear it in how I chart the song. If I were to go mute everything but the snare, actually solo the snare, you'll see what I have charted as the snare. If I remembered. You can see it's when this hits. Did you see that? These three right here. Sometimes drum rolls are really weird to do. Sometimes stylistically, like it's the pa pa ta pa pa ta pa pa ta pa 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 psh. Sometimes you can just bring them down here, and then but if you do that, you're gonna have to mark the middle red as a lift so that it's easier and flows better. But if you don't want to do that, you can just flat out just do this. And because of the way it's laid out, players will only have to do FJ or JFJ or right thumb, left thumb, right thumb, and it'll work out perfectly fine. And I do this multiple times in my charts. Somewhere. If I can find it, but whatever. And then there's also weird fills everywhere in this song. Like right here, you can see it gets kind of weird. If I were to unmute all of the parts of this song, you would see now that the tom is hit constantly this entire time, and the kick kind of just goes with it. The whole point is to make it flow as best as you can. So I have these every other note set as a lift so that you can just slam the button over and over. As long as you hit the pull-offs the way that they should be hit, then the song won't have an issue. I also have this set as an energy phase because I want it to be like not influenced, but shown off. I want them to be exaggerated. I want them to be thrown out there so that you can understand, hey, this is a little hard. If you can hit it, I'll reward you. It's called a hard phrase. Sometimes we have these easier phrases like this one right here, where it's literally just easy as could possibly be, simply so that it's just easy to get, like 3 points. Same with right here. It's 3 points pretty much. Like if you can hit those 8 notes, you have the energy and you can keep going. And these are all placed around 10 measures apart. I would have to playtest it properly to see how stars are acting. But yeah, that's generally the basics of everything. Drums is a bit more complex because it combines the strictness of the former charting of the other rhythm games that Harmonix, the creators of Festival, have made, but it also is less strict in that way and more strict in the sense of you have to make it playable for controller. And that's pretty much all there is to learn about charting this. Next, I'm going to teach you how to package these so that you can play it in Festival. Hope you have Party Pack installed, and if you don't, well, I got the link for you. Partypack.nc the dev. Click login over here. Go to download. Download the Party Packer. Go to submissions, and this is where the magic will happen. And in your profile, but that's unrelated.